The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Hello, welcome to the book review blog. I am your book reviewer, and today, if you haven't already realized, we're going to talk about the first book in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, which is called The Gunslinger. Many people had, including King himself, has described this series as his magnum opus or his great work, and this is the first, as I said, the first book. So I'm excited to start this series, and I've already read this book before and the second one after it, but that was it, and I decided to reread them and read the others for this review blog, so I'm excited. This book follows the trials of the gunslinger, whose name is Roland, and whose full name is Roland Deschain. He is from a world of Gilead. It's like Gilead, or maybe it's Gilead. What you'll notice is that it's kind of similar to, I guess, what you consider the Old West to be for the setting. However, it's not really of this world. Roland does kind of run into things that we on Earth or in America have heard of, but he has really never heard of them, and which I'll discuss in this review. So the first book, it's in a series of 5 chapters, and the first one is just Roland is kind of following the man in black, and he runs into a person named Brown, and with a crow, I believe, or a bird named Zoltan, and Roland does ask Brown for lodging, and while he's staying in Brown's house, he talks and tells Brown a story of kind of where he's from, and so it does go into flashback of when Roland was in a town called Tull, and he had befriended a woman named Allie, but the people in the town didn't like him and didn't like that he was befriending Allie. She was just kind of a town girl, and Allie's, I guess, ex-boyfriend led this riot group to kill Roland, and what ended up happening was Roland just kind of killed everybody with his guns, and he didn't kill Allie, but Allie ended up being killed, so all of the people of Tull died because of Roland, and so he left the town, and he told Brown this story, and one of the things I was telling you that that's an earthly thing that Roland didn't know is that Zoltan, even though he's not a parrot, he does talk, and one of the things that he likes to say is the beans, a musical fruit, little poem, and Brown's like, oh, don't pay attention to him, he just kind of talks, and of course Roland really doesn't have any idea what he's talking about, so I thought that was kind of funny. And after Roland stays with Brown for a while, he then goes along his way, still searching for the man in black, and he comes to a way station or a pumping station, and he befriends this little boy called Jake Chambers, and Jake tells Roland that he lived in this big city called New York, and again, Roland has no idea where that is, and that Jake ended up being pushed into oncoming traffic and was killed, and after he was killed, he was kind of brought to Roland's world, and so he befriends Roland, and they go kind of on their quest together through much of the book, and they kind of just walk along, and Roland tells Jake other stories of kind of how he became a gunslinger and how he befriended people like named Court and Cuthbert and Elaine, and which is a man, I imagine. It's like Alain. So just kind of big flashbacks and just kind of getting to know the character of Roland is kind of what the majority of this book is about. It goes, like you would imagine, from the present, I guess the quote-unquote present day of this area that Roland and Jake have now found themselves in, and then Roland, and then flashbacks by Roland telling Jake and other people stories of his childhood and just kind of how he became the way he did. And so they do go along their travels. They do meet and come across an oracle, and Jake is kind of fascinated by it, and he goes to touch it, but that proves very wrong for Jake, and he ends up kind of like as an epileptic fit, I guess, and but Roland goes also and after making sure Jake is okay, he goes to the Oracle, and the Oracle does show Roland things, and things that he doesn't know about. One of the first things he notices is 3 doors, and and he just kind of gets words and pictures, and one of the words that he gets is heroin, and as the meaning the drug, and he doesn't know what that's about, but and then again, you get 3 doors, and then a wheelchair. And this, if you are a fan of the book anyway, or the series, if you've already read, obviously this is a foresight to the next book. But for those who haven't, that is what that means. So, and we will talk about that when I read the next book in the series. But, and they kind of go, Jake and Roland are walking along, and they hit mountains, and kind of like in Lord of the Rings, they don't go over the mountains, they kind of go through the mountains, because they end up finding a train track, and they end up going on a handcar, which Jake has to explain to Roland what that is, and so they go through the handcar, or go through the mountains on the handcar, and they kind of like in Lord of the Rings, where they go in and go through the mountains and they meet that Balrog. Roland and Jake meet these things called slow mutants, which kind of are along the waterway that's underneath the railway, or rail cars and things like that. And the slow mutants kind of reach up and grab Jake, but Roland starts to shoot them, and they end up falling back. I don't think they're killed necessarily, but they do end up retreating, and Jake is all right. And then what happens is that they kind of reach the end of the mountains into daylight, and the man in black shows up, which Roland has been looking for throughout this book, and it's always kind of seen that he's maybe a day or two ahead of Roland and Jake. What happens is that the railway or the train track is so rusted that it ends up breaking, and Jake is kind of hanging by part of the railway, and Roland has to make a choice to either save Jake or to follow the man in black who he's been trying to find. And it just happens that Roland picks the man in black and leaves Jake to fall down, but Jake is not really saddened by that, because Jake kind of says to Roland in previous time that the only way that you will find what you're looking for is for me to be killed, and it was just kind of a prophecy type thing. And so Roland at the time was like, no, I won't let anything happen to you, but as it turns out, the prophecy was revealed and or fulfilled. And so Roland and the man in black finally meet, and the man in black is, in my eyes, he's kind of, well, obviously he's kind of the devil type situation, but he makes himself, kind of like the devil, kind of makes himself out to be God, and they talk about kind of creation stories, and the Man in Black gives Roland tarot cards, and also the tarot cards foretell what's going to happen in the next book. So I won't tell you with that, but eventually the Man in Black leaves him and Roland goes along his way. So, and that ends the Gunslinger, and then obviously that then goes to the next book, which is called The Drawing of the Three, which I will read eventually. But for my next book, I was at the library yesterday looking for actually another book, which I didn't find, but I wandered across this book, and what struck me, if you can tell, is that the cover looks a lot like the Twilight cover, and so I was like, wait, this isn't Twilight, what are you talking about? It's called Brave Girl Eating, A Family Struggle with Anorexia. It's by Harriet Brown, so I did just kind of caught my eye, and I was thinking, well, I'll give that a try. So that's it. I bid you all a happy day and happy reading.